Think about that.
Great.
Okay, folks, we'll make a start. The recording has started. It is, what is it? Tuesday, the 19th of March at 6 o'clock. Welcome to Finance and Personnel.
Stretch out.
A bit of musical chairs.
Can I have a shout when I like that?
And I can't see the screen.
I like you sat there, David, because I can tell you off easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can reach you. Right. 755. Does anybody have any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests? None. 756. Do we have any apologies for absence?
The only policy I've received is from Councillor Brindle.
Thank you. 757. Minutes from our last meeting on the 27th of February. Are you content that they are a true record?
20th.
20th of February, received by full council on the 27th of February. Happy?
Yep.
758, contracts update. To note the attached schedule of contracts. We actually have some now, which is good. Page. Next page. As these packs get a bit bigger, Alan, I struggle to find the right page. That's the problem. There's a benefit of having smaller. No, take the big. Right. Anything, Alan, you want to add to the four that are on there?
That's the one that was approved, that's planning the clock tower repairs.
Yeah. So we've got the current contract with the Guildhall scaffolding, the HR performance management review, the replacement of the boiler in the Guildhall, and the Guildhall clock tower repairs, hot off the press, approved at planning recently. Any questions on any of those contracts? No. Could we add a column for date approved? I know you've got the minute reference there and we can check back, but I think it would be quite helpful to have the date approved when I was reading these. And the other question I had was the replacement for the boiler. Where are we at with the replacement of the boiler in the Guildhall?
If you go past down Cage Lane, you'll see that there's some earthworks outside Dad's Army. That is for the new gas supply to be put in. And the boiler in order. So as soon as the gas supply is in, they'll be there. I'm being told it's about 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay. Good.
I was told it started at the beginning of this week.
Lovely. I was slightly nervous because we awarded that contract on the basis of a estimate for the delivery time, and that factored into our approval. And I was not wanting to let it drag too long, because why would we make the decision we did if it then took ages? We could have gone with somebody else, but if it's underway, then I'm happy. 759, approval of payments. Got the usual list of payments detailed in your pack. Anything, Alan, to add to the list that was circulated? Everyone happy with the payments that are there? Yeah. Well, you made them all, so you must be happy. Chief authorizer.
I'm just finding it hard to get them. That's your favourite bit.
Do you need a proposal and seconder for that to approve the payments? Could I have a proposal to accept the payments, David? And a seconder? Doug? All agreed?
Yep.
Thank you. Personnel report. We receive and discuss the personnel report, which was circulated in advance. I see there's been some training courses booked up for April for the staff, fire marshal, first aid, that sort of thing, which is good.
And we're also giving training for the new staff that we will recruit. So we combining that with the existing staff training, so we don't have to do separate sessions. We can actually have it as part of the induction process.
Brilliant. And we've got a note there about planning training coming up.
A lot of silence from Brecon Council side, so I have emailed them 2 or 3 times to just follow up. They wanted to have a briefing session with me first to fully understand what the requirements were, and that seems to be a difficulty in organising. But I have fired off an email very recently.
Okay.
And awaiting response.
If you've not had a response by Friday, could you let a couple of us know, because we are going to Breckland for a local plan briefing. So the relevant officers will all be there and one of us could raise that for you. The planning expertise, could you just outline what's been agreed there with Mark Webster in relation to planning? I think that'd be beneficial.
So fortunately, I didn't get a chance to do this before the meeting earlier on because I was on leave, and the day I arrived was the only day that I confirmed that he was actually available and was going to come. So Mark Webster used to be part of our staff establishment. He used to run the planning process. The feedback that I got from councillors was that they actually quite enjoyed it. He was able to do a little more dimension because he would actually speak to the Breckland planning officers before. He would have a look at the plans, etc. So I had a negotiation with Mark. I pay him a retainer, and he will be available to do that. I send him all the information. He analyses it. I put together the pack. He adds a summary, and he's more than happy to be available to discuss, and he can add a lot more depth. I have felt so embarrassed running the planning committees in the last few meetings. I've really cringed. And I don't think I'm really done myself really proud. And I've probably spent more time preparing for that meeting than I have at any other meeting. So it's, in my opinion, it's money well spent. And Mark is, he's, just to give you an example, he's actually on leave for the next planning meeting and he's going to actually dial in. So I'm going to use one of these screens and actually have him on call, and he'll actually do his presentation, send it to me and do it from his hotel room. So he's really is, my understanding, and just dealing with him, he will add depth to the planning processes here.
Yeah, I thought it worked really well. Well done.
We just need planning applications to get our money's worth.
I was just want to comment on that because obviously I was here the term before. So Mark was here all along and telling us his planning. I think Mark is good value when it comes to, he knows the stuff in and out. He knows the details, able to add, to give a overview and put it in simple terms that even somebody who's not acquainted with planning can understand and give us a really good view of what's at stake, what's to be approved and what's our limitations. And no one tried to fit the planning that those boxes we struggle with. It kind of gives us the box and tells this is where you can put in that box. That's why you have to work with. Mark, I think was a great value, and I think it was missed. And for him to come back, I think it's excellent.
Planning's never worked as well, other than when he was here.
That's
He's the
true.
best.
He was by far the
Still
best.
improvements, but
He's so
it's
knowledgeable.
the best.
And very thorough. Yeah.
So hopefully we can take
Yeah.
advantage of that and beef up our
That is true.
planning responses. The next one on the list there, Alan, is the advertising for the two, but the new positions that we've got, and they closed this week.
We closed
14.
Yeah. All the applications on my desk. I just wanted to go through the HR consultancy tonight because they had said to me, this is a public meeting, but they just said, get some feedback from the councils in terms of steer. So tomorrow morning I will have a meeting with Nick and we'll start running through and screening them, and then we'll get a list and see if we can organise interviews sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
We had a big issue with our toilets on the weekend. One of our staff members picked up that they were actually in a shocking state. So we had a review meeting with the contractor, but I think they realised that the writing's on the wall. I think they've lost the big contract that they had, which they were feeding our contract off that contract, and they just all they can do is apologise, which doesn't help us.
No. Do you have any indication of how many applicants there were?
I believe we could be looking at about 50.
Happy birthday.
Video or something you need to tomorrow.
That's just for the two counting positions.
And there's a toilet cleaner, what we call the amenity officer, and the two toilets.
They're all the same SCP scale, aren't they? So
Yeah.
very similar roles. Good. Well, hopefully, amongst that number, you've got some decent candidates. That's encouraging that there's that many. That's, you know, good choice, hopefully.
The concern there is that they've just been bunted on from the job sector,
Yeah.
hasn't it?
Made to apply.
Yeah.
Well, find out.
We'll probably sift them out quite quickly.
Okay. Any other questions from the personnel report? No? Lovely, thank you. 761, logging and reporting of complaints. There are none.
Surprisingly, there are.
You can write something.
Confidence.
The rumour has it that I've been reported to the standards.
You're in good company. 762, financial report for the 11 months ended the 29th of February. That is in your pack. What are the highlights? I do enjoy your narrative Alan, at the front of these reports. I find it really useful.
I think the narrative, as the year goes on, the narrative kind of becomes really repetitive. You know, we've got problems in our in venues and markets from an income perspective. There was an over budgeting there. Our cemetery income is down, which is just due to the mix. For the last 2 years, we haven't actually hit the target. Normally, you know, we have to turn people away from being buried in the park. We have to do that. Our other income is up because we book costs for projects. And surprisingly, our property income is up. You know, we've still got 2 unfilled units at the shambles. So that's been quite surprising. On the finance and personnel perspective, we've got significant savings there. From an expenditure perspective, a lot of that is salaries. We've changed the way that we budget, so hopefully we won't have that. So the other part of that saving is when we did the budget for finance and personnel, electricity, gas, oil prices were at the heights. It was in November 2022. So we have huge savings in those particular areas. So just the 3 areas of that. Unfortunately, our trade, we've signed a new contract with Brecon Council for our trade waste disposal, but we are generating so many skips at the moment that the savings that we're having from doing that, we're actually losing because we're paying huge amounts to have our skips emptied. So we're doing an investigation into that. We're going into the markets. There's no way that we just go to one supplier and say, please drop off the skip. But one of the issues that we have to do is we have to think about our allotments, because that's where a lot of the waste is being generated. As we clear allotments, we have to do that. When we get, just as an aside, when we're going out and getting contractors to clear allotment sites, their biggest cost is waste disposal, it's just getting rid of it. So we're having a rethink of that. I've issued instruction that I want to see a competitive quote for every single skip that gets used, and we need to just make sure we're aware of what we're actually putting into it. Whether we could compost some of the stuff ourselves, I'm not, you know, we need to have a look at. Venues and markets is over expenditure. That's really repairs and maintenance. I think some projects were undertaken that the budget wasn't there. And because you'd expect, with income being lower, that you'd expect the expenditure to be lower, because it's a commercial type organisation. And amenities is lower. We budgeted an extra £19,000 worth of cost because of all the land clearing that we've done. We've caught up backlog on Barnum Cross Common, and we discovered that our contractor had done work and hadn't invoiced us going back. So we've got about £21,000 of invoices that we've processed in the last month. They've all been verified, all been signed off, but they actually just were delayed and doing the extra work. So it's not their contractual work that's been booked every single month, but it's all the scrapes and the other work that they've been doing on Barnum Cross Common, and those costs have come through. And then our other expenditure relates to the projects. We've earned grant income and project income, and those are the costs related to that. We're not ripping off people, just for the record, because there's timing costs. We incurred higher costs last year, lower income. This year, we have higher income and lower costs.
The Barnum Cross Common, the work that was done on there, was it not budgeted for? Who agreed it? Who decided it needed doing?
What they did is they had certain we agreed that they would do certain work, so it wasn't part of their normal contract.
Yeah.
We said that they'd have to do certain scrapes in order for us to keep our SSI or meet our obligations in terms of that.
But was it agreed that we have to do that?
It was,
Even
it
members?
was agreed. And what had happened is because of the change in management, no one had changed up the invoices. And our supplier also has had significant changes. I mean,
Yeah.
all the contractors that we've been working with. So when we said to them, why haven't you done your work? And they said, well, we actually have done it. And then that's when
Here's the bill.
invoices
Right.
got
Yeah.
produced. So it was us doing it rather than them saying, you know, we haven't billed. It was, why haven't you done your work?
Yeah.
You bring our SSI money at risk.
It's a recurring issue, particularly when we look at this agenda item each month, where the council is having to chase contractors for invoices. And I would have thought that there would have been a time limit put in place of how long people could invoice us, because it doesn't help us with proper sort of budget management.
But
If-
unfortunately
if-
there isn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because,
6 years.
6 years.
Yes.
6 years.
You'd think it'd be 30 days or something.
6 years.
It's 6 years.
Really?
Sign it off in a month or it's never going to get invoiced.
So
Presumably, I know we're talking about financial regs later and purchase ordering process. Presumably, we're able to track these late invoices against purchase orders and that sort of thing.
we have a process. My assistant is brilliant at doing that. We use a color coding system, so I can go onto a spreadsheet and just drop down that and see that. The problem that we have is that the ordering system is not as robust as it should be.
Yeah.
So if I use two spheres of government, if I go to Beckman Council and ask for some work, they'll send me a PO number. That means nothing to me. You know, it doesn't tell me what work they want, what the price is. If we do work for Norfolk County Council, for example, we get a proper purchase order. This is who you bill. This is the description of the work. This is where you send your invoice to. So we're trying to move to that. Unfortunately, I couldn't get that implemented. I've been trying for years to have it implemented. If you go back to finance reports years ago, you'll see that it was there. So now that I'm in the opportunity to do that, it's going to start on the 1st of April.
Yeah.
We are not having this. And I was explaining to the SMT that they had to come and write these reports to see all these variances and why they've occurred. It's actually, it is an element of poor budgetary control.
Yes.
We're just lucky that we underspending in some areas
Yes.
to counter the overspending in other areas. And we can't continue like that. So I'm really trying to address that.
Thank you.
And can do from.
Yeah, I think it's really important. If we go down the purchase order route, even if we haven't physically received the invoice, you should then, from a budgetary point of view, anticipate it at some
Yeah.
point so the budget is more accurate.
Yeah.
Double entry bookkeeping.
Well, it's just a recurring issue where we've heard on multiple occasions, whether it's a cemetery or amenities, oh, we've had some invoices come in for work that was done 6 months. Okay. You'd think these firms have cash flow requirements, but you know. I just wanted to ask about waste disposal costs, and I see the figure there at £6,000. I was interested, you said that there has been some additional costs. The original overspend was a lot higher than that, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So the fact that we've bought in this new contract, I don't know if we've done a calculation of how much we've saved over the year, but I'd imagine it's quite significant because we were already, it was over 10 grand the overspend 4 months ago.
I think it's been quite significant. I think if I look at the two contracts, one was about 1,000. One was 900 and the other one was 1,200. The last invoices we paid them the other day was 300 and 600.
Okay.
So it is quite a substantial saving.
Thank goodness we put that in place, because I was really worried at one point that the yearly overspend for waste disposal would be over £20,000. That was the trajectory, but because that new contract has been put in place, it's actually, although we're now incurring some additional costs, it's nowhere near as bad as it would have been. Terry.
I noticed there's an £18,000 variance on the Guildhall relating to the tea room. I'm a bit sort of puzzled because I assume that's obviously because it's not open, but I can't see a corresponding amount of money on the other side, on the expenditure. So is that actually a loss, or is it offset by not having to buy anything?
That figure, is there a code link to that figure?
It'll be 5 something.
Yeah, hang on. I'll find it now, can I?
I'll find it for you. It's on the second page.
It is 4206.
5210.
Oh, okay, sorry. Apologies.
Catering purchases.
Well, the one I was looking at was 4006, which is Guildhall Catering. That's on income. It says it's 18,000
So
live.
the income is down by 18 and
Yeah.
the purchases are down by 4,700. So
Okay.
our GP percent on catering was a lot higher. It was about 60 to 70%.
Okay.
So if you lose, £100 in sales, you only lose £30 in purchases.
Yeah.
So that's why the conversation.
Because we were losing money on it, weren't we?
If you took the salaries out of the salaries line budget and allocated it to all the various line items, we were paying to have that tea room open.
So having it closed has actually been a benefit financially.
Yes, yes. And then,
Although we're still paying the salaries, I guess.
no, the salaries, we reallocated the salaries.
Which you did, yeah.
Okay. So what's the, sorry, Doug.
So I was going to move on to something else. I thought you were moving on.
No, I've got a different point.
I'm just going to a very granular point on the waste thing. You say a lot of it's doing with skips allotments. Is it just a practical reason why we can't allocate some of the cost there? Because I don't know, I just looked at the budget line and I go, oh, allotments, yeah, that's pretty much on budget. But if we're incurring lots of costs on allotments and they're actually costing us money, then I feel like we need
There's quite a lot of corporate costs that are hidden. The same with amenities. Some of the skips will be for amenities, but they come under finance and personnel because that's the sort of corporate waste disposal.
Yeah.
So the issue was, if you don't mind, it was, we used to have about 1,200 codes and we had insurance in every single part. So we took certain costs and we broke them up and we allocated. So the accounting was just doing journal entries and reallocation. They then narrowed them right down. But I think what we've done is gone from one extreme to the other extreme, and it's moving back to the middle ground. And I'm determined, I have my own personal development project as part of finance, is to get more functional budgets, because we need to understand that otherwise we look at allotments and we don't understand what the true cost is. So therefore, the driver to look at deposits, the driver to look at increasing allotment fees is not there. So we will get there, but it's just.
Yeah, that makes sense. Otherwise, it's one of those things. It's very hard to manage, but don't want to create too much extra work. But at the same time, it just seems sort of hard sometimes to when you look at it.
Is the cost of clearing allotments, is that something we expect to reduce over time?
You'd hope so.
I think what's. Sorry.
I think it's very good. I looked at this before and it's not passed on. It's a hidden cost. All the time it's a hidden cost. You know, the cost of clearing the allotment is more than the yearly charge for that allotment. I think that if you do eventually look into it and have all the costs associated with the allotments.
But what I'm asking is, will that cost I'm assuming that once you clear an allotment, you don't have to clear it again. So what I'm asking is really, over time, do we expect that cost to diminish?
I think we've got some special clearings that we have to do, but we're going to use external contractors for that. So that won't come to our cost. Why it has been high is that we've actually been using a very thorough or a far more robust inspection regime. So we've actually had people leave. And one of the reasons that they leave is because they have too much stuff on the allotments or they're not using the allotments, so they use it as storage. So I think we are making inroads into that. So when it will reduce, whether it's 12 months or 24 months, I'm not too sure. But I think it's Berry Road as the sites of, Berry Road is virtually immaculate, I would say.
Okay, good.
London Road is, if people have to leave London Road, I think there's more timber in London Road than I think there is in Thetford Forest.
I wonder if this is something we can load on to the actual tenants in time, because we're paying for their prestige, really, aren't we? I mean, this is probably from Chris and myself at allotments committee. I don't know.
Deposit system is what we need to look at. The cost of the deposit should be sufficient to clear the plot.
Yeah.
That's why we hold a deposit.
Yeah.
And how much is it now? 50 quid?
50 quid for 4.5. It's an hour, 25.
I'd rather leave me plot and sod off because you keep the 50 quid.
Exactly.
I think that
Right.
on the costs, with the increasing cost of disposing going up, which is, IRS keep not long ago, it cost me an arm and a leg. It is a costly part of the aspect of keeping things tidy. And it keeps increasing very much so every year and cost. So even those £50, even if say stationary, it's just gonna come a point that you get so enough to cover the cost of clearing the grounds, then we run a 12%.
I do think it's a good thing that plots are being cleared though.
Yeah, of course.
So we need to remember that, and you know, there's a bit of pain in the short term, but I do hope Terry's point is right, that it will get better. In the sense of there won't be as a need for as many, there's a backlog we're clearing. Once it's cleared, there shouldn't be that many frequencies.
There'll be so much asbestos.
Can you just confirm what the headline figures are? Because we're almost at the end of the year now, aren't we?
This is when I get the most nervous ever in producing these reports, because I have not even seen read that. At the moment, we're sitting with a net total of about 46,709. But it's before financial year end. So I've got to do value. We've got a lot of work to do in April, May, where we've got to check the prepayments. We've got to check what's we haven't accrued. So I think it'll come out well. So we're not going to have a deficit. I'm fairly certain of that. What that final surplus will be, I'm not too sure. We've also got to provide for things like the HR consultancy, for example. We haven't provided for that, and the participatory budgeting hasn't been provided for. I think we set aside £19,000 for amenities, additional land clearing. I think some of those costs have now come through. The 25,000 that we set aside for participatory budgeting is might still have to come out of this year in a different way. So fingers crossed, we'll be okay. I'm fairly confident. But we're not making tons of money.
Well, a surplus is always better than a deficit. Any other questions on the 11-month report? Yeah, happy to note.
Can I just ask a question? 5138 green energy saving projects. We're not planning any, and we're not going to spend any money this year. Will that be back in the budget for next year if it's not spent? And was there any element of energy efficiency or green energy saving in the new boiler, or any consideration for that?
It will be, that line item was, we actually did a whole lot of small projects. So we changed the lighting system in the guild hall.
Right.
So that column is actually last year's expenditure. It's not this year's expenditure.
I presume
We didn't budget anything for this year, but we hadn't done it. So hopefully it comes.
That's only because it was spent the previous year.
The actual projects.
Yeah.
Hopefully the saving comes through lower electricity costs, lower energy costs. We did the roof of the part of the Carnegie, so hopefully our heating bills were there. So the end result of that is sitting hopefully in other parts of the budget. Our biggest challenge is we don't have smart meters, and that's not through a lack of trying, because that would actually help us quantify what those savings are.
But we've saved a fortune on heating in the Guildhall.
We have, yeah, I bet. Extra jumper, isn't it?
Right, we'll move on to 763, which is the draft budget. This has been to a few committees for comment, so thank you to everybody that's contributed. I think it's missed venues, Terry, because obviously we're meeting tonight and you're meeting tomorrow.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a live document, so there's always an opportunity to amend it. And we've sort of tidied up the list of projects a little bit, Alan, haven't we? Do you want to sort of highlight which ones we've confirmed as still being required?
In terms of all of these, I haven't done a report on the status of the current one, because that's where you asked me, and I'll do that when we report back on that for next year, next month, because I have to actually get that for the reserves authorised. So this is only projects going forward.
Okay.
I've just taken a view of what I'm fairly certain is not going to be completed by the 31st of March.
Yeah.
And then that's budget. But in the previous meeting, I had this current status of the current year budget, and that I need a little bit more work on, and we'll do that through the financial year end process.
Okay. The one I wanted to, well, there's two I want to comment on. One is the play park renewal of £40,000. So previously that was spread over 2 years, £40,000 each year. I know we did the first year's worth of play area repairs to 40 grand. Is that 40 grand the second year, or is that an additional 40 to the 80?
It's the third year.
So it's a third, so it's another 40 on top of the 80.
Whoa. That's a lot of money.
It is. And is that based on, because we had some fairly detailed ROSPA reports and quotes to basically fulfil the ROSPA requirements. Is that 120 figure based on working through the recommendations?
It is,
Okay.
Is that, sorry. Is that predominantly Castle Park? I know we've got a few. Where are the biggest?
Castle's, that's probably the best one out of the 13.
we've had to do reseeding at Fairfields. We've done, we had a spate of vandalism, and we're just renewing where things break. We have to, they get inspected weekly by us and annually by through ROSPA. So it's just a matter of just keeping on top of it. But I think we have turned the corner. So this 40,000 could be used to upgrade rather than repair, and that might, at some stage the amenities committee was thinking about, well, can we have a program to upgrade some of the play parks, because they really are quite redundant, old and redundant. This 40,000 hopefully will be able to be used for that rather than doing routine repairs.
I think that's good to highlight that it's refurbishment and improvement rather than constant repair.
But, so I'd ask you for permission to talk.
No,
Horrifying.
you set a bad example.
In the operational budget, we've actually had also increased significantly the amount of money that we spend on repairs for play park.
We've doubled it.
Yeah.
So that's a very good argument for not having any more play parks, isn't it?
I mean, how do people feel about spending yet another 40k on play parks? I mean, on top of the 80 we've already spent.
It seems a huge amount of money.
I haven't worked out what it is, but I still think there needs to be an alternative. I feel like play parks are seen as the thing you do because they've done. Yeah, they're really in use for kids 6 months a year. I mean, where we technically live close to one on Thetford estate. We only really go to Castle Park because we only, it's not actually that much difference. We're going into town. We're going to use that play park. So I do feel like at some point we can consider how we invest that money more effectively. I'll say that just.
David,
I haven't got an answer, but
I think it'd be rather nice to do, if not a consultation as such, to put in like about Thetford or something to say, look, this is what the cost is. Could people let us have their opinions? Because when we're out canvassing and talking to people, the things that do come up is a lack of amenities for young children.
Yeah.
And if we say, well, actually, we've got play parks, do you know they cost us 40 grand a year? Well, let's talk about it, put it out and let people come back to us. We've got this wonderful website that's nearly working. It's great to put something on there
Well, it's taken there.
and say, come on, let's have some feedback.
okay, thank you. Terry, Chris, then Ron.
Is there a case for having fewer play parks but of better quality?
That would be my view.
Okay. Oh, right. What?
No, I mean, I've had this discussion with a councillor who's not on here anymore, and he wanted to do away with some of the play parks, which I thought was really wrong. I would increase the number of play parks we have. We need one on the Norwich Road estate.
Yep.
We need the one at Elm Road, modernising and brought up to date. So I'm all for that. I mean, the more play parks we have, the better. We keep on about children's health, how we're fed up with being stuck indoors. Let's give them the facilities to get outside and do something.
Okay, Ron.
I just wanted to know whether the exercise park is part of that package. So things like that, I think, are worth exploring, integrating exercise in especially for all ages, not just the toddlers.
You mean the one at Castle Park?
Yeah.
It's always used. It's brilliant. Annie, then Doug.
Just on the cost of the play parks, is it possible, because you were saying that some of that money, the 40,000, is used to repair vandalism? When people complain on the play parks, can't we just say, actually, we spend this much money on repairing vandalism. If that didn't happen, we would have more money to spend on them. Just to let people know, because everybody, you know, just to say we've got 40,000, I don't think people think that some of that is being used to repair vandalism.
I think from memory,
don't know
this
how-
financial year is about £10,000 on repairs specifically for vandalism.
Well, that's quite a lot, isn't it? To let people know, because that would mean, okay, there's £30,000 for play parks, isn't it? Which is a lot less.
Over the three, yeah, sorry, apologies.
I think I'm just shooting daggers at you now. I was just going to respond to Chris's point. For me, I don't think it's about, and let's face it, even I'm a council because I have kids and I want them to have fun and stuff to do. So yes, I want activities for kids. I want them to have places to go out there, healthy when they can do things. I don't think that necessarily correlates directly to a play park. You know, there's lots of other facilities we can do with that kind of money that might be better. Encourage them into different sports. We could do that. I feel like the money there. I worry that it's going to be spent on play parks because we just always spend it on play parks rather than thinking how we can actually do more for children to keep them active.
Well, we used to have youth clubs, but we don't anymore.
Hold on, Ron. Terry?
Sorry.
Everyone loves play parks, yes! No, it's all right. No, go on. Yeah.
Carla?
I'm not in the committee, I'm just giving my opinion, but I think play parks is a double-edged sword. You know, is the cost, is exorbitant. But the benefit to the community from our perspective is of great value. And I think the community wouldn't see, well, if we done away with parks all completely by any means. So I agree with Chris on that respect. I'm not sure we need to invest so many. Or if we need to increase them, given the cost they have, to be honest, Chris, but I think at least making the ones we have in quality and necessary for the children are absolutely essential so they have a place to play. But I remind you as well that on the last meeting you minutes, we voted in something called everybody has the right to play. So we can't really conflict ourselves as a council. We sign up and we all unanimously agree to promote that as a core principle and then do away with the play parks. I just think it's a bit conflictive if we go that way. But I think there's got to be some strategy that we find to invest their money a bit more wisely. The safety comes first, and then how we upgrade it and in by which pace we do that, maybe something that needs to be discussed a bit further.
Can I make a suggestion, Alan, as a bit of an action point? Could you or maybe Mark make contact with Breckland about what Section 106 contributions that we've got available for play? Because I think the point Ron made about the gym equipment, we didn't pay for that as a town council. We coordinated that, but it was Section 106 contributions,
Okay.
40 odd grand. So if there is any money available, it can't be used for repairs. But the point you made about actually we're now in the realms of upgrade. So Section 106 is relevant because we're improving, not just maintaining the current standards. It'd be worth looking at Section 106 contributions. And what was the other point I was going to make? 40. I can't remember.
I might tell you very quickly, as part of that proposal that was approved by us, one of the main points that was quite reinforced it was the ability of spaces that are adaptable, that's ability friendly, that can accommodate all different members of the community. And this is something that was clear from that last meeting that we were lacking, was a facility that would accommodate people with disabilities, multiple neurodivergent, and whatever situation may be. So maybe it might be that we have to invest in the play parks, but maybe find a strategy or where the priorities are and try to accommodate so it is accessible for everybody in the community.
Okay.
Idea anyway.
I'd echo that. It feels like we're just sort of jogging along rather than thinking about what we're doing. I think there may be a case for some sort of strategy.
I agree.
I'm hearing the word working party looming into the.
Oh, gosh, no, I'm just
I think it's something we can take forward through amenities. We need a play area plan.
Yeah.
So I'm sensing we're happy to keep the 40k in there for play areas.
I think for now, you guys want to. I don't know, it's up to you guys. I'm just.
No, that's fine. And the 20 grand that we've got as the project budget for the sculpture trail, how much of that is donor money and how much is that is our own money?
Big 10,000 of it is our money.
Okay.
So we've received money, and we will receive money from BFER and must be Bretland. I'm trying to remember.
I think it was MTI. Okay, so we're happy to continue to deliver the Sculpture Trail.
Can I ask? I've never heard anything about this. Where is it and what is it?
It's been on the back burner for a long while, so it's basically putting in place the Sculpture Trail primarily along the river, and basically creating circular walks within Thetford, encompassing the river and Barnum Common, places like that. And there will be some wood sculptures, some metal sculptures, that sort of thing. So it's a nice project. It's about getting people walking. As Doug was saying about, not necessarily play equipment, but stuff for families to do, and there'll be a little trail guide and that sort of thing.
I think we do get hijacked into thinking that, and I think this is reinforcing Doug's point, that the only form of play is a play park. We can be more creative. Can't we?
Okay.
Yeah, that's all sorts of things like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The Restoring King's House Council Chamber and the removal costs, I mean, combined, that's £10,000. That's quite a lot of money, isn't it?
We have quotes, the highest quote we got for sorting out this wall, for example, is only £2,000.
Okay.
But we don't know what's behind it. So I've just been, we don't have to spend, because it's budgeted, we don't have to spend it. That's the point. It's like play parks. This committee, or the amenities committee, will have to make a formal decision on all these projects. This is just to ensure that we've actually worked out where it is. So if we don't incur it, we don't need it. But I'd hate to have a situation where, something needs doing it, we don't have a budget to do it, then we're going to have to do environments and do everything. We can't do it necessarily a little bit more formally.
Okay.
Does the budget include the archiving and removal of the records in the loft in the attic?
Some of the archiving costs have been really incurred, and that would be an operational cost. We haven't budgeted that in the project's budget.
Because I understand there's a lot there.
The books have really gone. So
All right, okay.
So there were two mixes. The Stanley Force is way ahead of where Thetford Town Council is. The books are in a special room at Simon Long.
Okay.
Very sorry for it.
So there'll be ongoing storage costs as well.
But they're not they're actually quite reasonable.
Yeah.
But that's a Stanley Force.
Yeah, okay. They're committed to those.
Okay. Sorry, Carla, yeah.
It's just a quick question. I was asking if the savings that we're gonna incur on the longer term by moving from here to Cali, which was the whole plan initially to save costs for the council, will not the cost of the whole moving over time dissipate? I mean, it is a cash flow issue, but will they not sort of dissipate in savings that we're gonna gain long term with that? Isn't that the strategy? If I understood well, basically. Okay.
These costs are one-off costs.
Yeah, well, yes. The problem is they're all one-off now. This particular year, I see that issue.
There were two things I added, took the liberty of adding. One is the Thomas Paine plinth. So we've added 10,000. I'm still waiting for the quote. So that if it's 10,000, we can possibly afford it. And the other one is because we didn't have a venues and market meeting until tomorrow night, I just went and did some inquiries, and you'll see right at the bottom there, there's the fifth one from the bottom, marketplace sounds. The Carnegie speakers, the one above that, they believe that the speakers need to be replaced. So I've just put in the budget that has to be confirmed by venues and market.
Okay. I think we've probably commented on that enough. I'm quite keen for it not to go to full council at the moment. I think it needs a bit more work done just to review some of the costs. I'm quite keen that we identify where this money is coming from on each aspect.
Next year.
Well, okay. Hold on.
You can be the page below, black and white.
Yeah.
Can I ask one question about that? Which just so I understand it, and this is, I feel like I've asked this question before. General reserve, which fund is that, and why is there 120,000 marked against it for the next financial year?
The general reserve is just it's contingency.
Yeah.
And the 120,000 would possibly be the 75,000 for the fire risk assessment projects. and the parish partnership of 25,000 would be the main one thing.
And the, just on the fire, things, that's a one-off cost that will be, it won't take place for the next, we don't need to do it and it's not.
No, it's just a one-off cost.
And how long would that last for?
Well, we're hoping that will keep us, we'd be very careful and diligent, I'd like to think this time. We're actually appointing a project manager before we do anything else. We've got fire specialists that's going to come in. We've got quotes from 3 suppliers. They come out at about £75,000. We don't believe that we should be incurring that type of cost. So what we're doing is we're getting the project manager to actually break it all down into various tasks and then do them as small assignments. So, for example, putting in the fire doors where they need to be put in, that would be one task. And they will then go and liaise with all 3 suppliers and actually make a recommendation to say, well, this is what we need to do. But we will bring a plan to finance and personnel once that's done from the project manager so that we can actually, there's an accountability and transparency over that. Cool.
Thanks.
Okay.
We can do some things right at times. Sorry.
On the, sorry, on the fire thing, we've got incurred a lot of costs here that we're not going to incur in future. So that's going to be a significant saving. One of the bonuses of moving from here.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, what we're essentially saying we're going to do if we adopt this schedule of projects is spend £300,000 of reserves in the next year, which is a pretty major decision. And I think we just need to pause for a moment and make sure that we're happy with that. I mean, it's pretty, almost a third of our total reserves in the next financial year. And I'd rather we went through the projects in a bit more detail before we commit to that. I'm a bit quiet.
Because of the some of the things we're putting in place, it's hitting the reserves this year.
Yeah.
One of the major costs is the 2 towers.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
And the heating.
And the heating. So that's a one-off cost, those things. But next year, a lot of our income is going down because of the steps we're taking now. Our expenditure is not going to be so high on.
In theory.
Expenditure's going down.
Expenditure's going down. not
Expenditure's going
You
down.
said income.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Expenditure's going down. So over the next 2 or 3 years, we will be putting a significant chunk of that reserves back that we've drained out this year.
In theory.
Of course, it's always in theory.
There's always more expenditure.
I think the trouble with that argument, David, is that there are some people who always want to spend money.
Yeah. I know. I can't believe it.
Oh, dear.
I think what I would like to do is to look through the reserves and the project list and then come back with a proposal next month if you're happy with that.
So can I take a proposal? We do the financial year end, that's in May.
Yeah.
It might be worthwhile to actually combine them.
Good
because We
idea.
have to do a schedule with that, and then you'll then know exactly what your reserves
I
are,
prefer that.
and then we can actually plan going forward.
Okay.
And that's sensible.
With the scaffolding and those flaming towers, we are incurring a weekly cost of 1,000. Is it possible to at least have that scheduled in? Because if we're putting it back another 10 weeks to May or June, that's another 10 or 15,000.
No, that decision's already been made.
Is that-
This is separate. By delaying it won't impact anything that's already underway because it's already been agreed to. So the heating and the scaffolding and the 2 towers.
Nothing's been delayed there.
It's all
Fine.
progressing. This essentially is new projects,
Right, that's fine.
and with the best will in the world, I doubt any of the new projects will be started by May anyway, because we've got quite a few big ones on the go as it is.
Fine.
Okay, so I'm going to leave it there, and I think coming back in May, once we've got the first full year's accounts and an up-to-date report on reserves, and then we can take stock for the year ahead. 764, internal control review, to review and update the template for internal control review that is required by legislation and is referred to in our financial regulations.
So what we try to do, when I first came here, we used to do internal control reviews, and a lot of councils do them, and I don't think they really understand why they do them and what the purpose is. So I spent a lot of time developing this particular module. If you get the presentation in the right place. In May or June, whenever it happens, we will be coming to the council and asking the council to agree all these steps. Can you tick, is council happy that step 1, step 2, internal control objectives 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. can be ticked off? And previously there was really nothing to have the basis. And what we did is we took that and we said, okay, if we're going to ask council to do that, we actually need to do an internal control review that actually enables each of those assertions that you could actually say, yes, we can sign that off because these are the controls that we have in place. And so what we've done is we've developed the template. It's worked fairly well for the last two years. So this will be the third year that we actually used it. And all it requires is if this committee is happy for these assertions, for the internal control review to contain this, the committee can elect councillors to do the internal control review. The idea is that you interrogate me as town clerk and finance officer and get the assurance that what we say we're doing is adequate. And what I've done is the highlights in yellow are changes that have happened recently that probably still need to be tested a little bit more so that we can councils can get the assurance that those are the things that we're focusing on. So some of the issues that have come out in previous internal control reviews is if controls over credit cards, there was loss of control at some stage over that. That's been rectified. The ordering system needs attention. We've highlighted that, and there's some other factors. So it's a little bit of a kind of governance model. But I believe if the council would ever ask, how did you make that decision, they would actually use this as a basis of justifying that.
David?
I like that, but the yes box, it's yes, I'd like your signature in it, for example, and the mayor or the lead of the financing person, like 2 signatures saying it's been done and they're satisfied with it.
That table was a nationally supplied document, isn't it?
Yeah.
The one that's yes, no, that's the same table for all parish and town councils.
But it's
And the full version, there is a bit at the bottom, and I think it's the chair of a full council that has to sign it, isn't it?
It's the chair of the council
that'll do.
and the town clerk.
Yeah, so that's just a amended version of the questions. Once it's approved by full council, once it's been completed, the mayor signs it on behalf of the council.
Fine, yeah. Looks excellent.
Yeah. So the nominate councillors to undertake the review. In the past, I've always felt that it's best to have 2 councillors who are not members of the finance committee to do it. And funnily enough, Carla, although you are here this evening, you're not a member of finance and personnel.
Hi, under the table now.
And I did wonder, because obviously you've got a sort of legal background, and I know you're very good at interrogating things.
Right, is that a compliment?
That is a compliment.
I'm trying to get more Terry.
I'm told I'm very good at compliments.
Oh dear.
I thought about yourself and then Stuart Wright, so, he's a chartered accountant and he's not on finance and personnel. And I thought the 2 of you would actually be quite good for this.
That's fine. I don't mind playing. And I'm not in finance, so there you go.
Yeah.
Why not? Sure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Whatever else, I guess is fine.
Do you want to propose on 7?
Yes, did you want to have someone else in addition to those 2, or just for those 2?
What are you looking at?
You're choosing enough.
Oh, yeah, for a penny.
This is something to feed back to the committee. I'll take minutes.
I think it'd be good for you to do it. There's a sort of experience.
Thank you. Why am I saying yes? Yes.
Yeah, you've got 3. You lucky thing. I'm happy to propose those 3. Would somebody like to second? Ron? All agreed? Thank you very much for volunteering.
Hello.
Anything else on internal control review? So Alan will be in touch with you both and set up.
Okay, that's all right, yeah. Just let us know.
As part of that, have a look at previous versions as well, because this is something we do every year.
Like the validity version.
But it will be particularly useful, I think, probably for you, Terry, as a new councillor, to actually maybe ask questions that you haven't been asked before. Or,
Yeah,
Yeah, useful.
so it's a good balance there. 765, financial risk assessment, to review the financial risk assessment that was distributed to committee members and published with this agenda on the website. When's the last time we reviewed the financial risk assessment?
They get reviewed every year.
Oh.
I don't review it. I got my first audit qualification. If I give you a little bit of history, I think this has gone through quite a rigorous process. Every year we find it, but I think the one mistake that we possibly made last year is we put too many things into the financial risk assessment and not brought it into the financial regulations. So I've tried not to make that mistake this year. You know, things like our project management, you know, we've addressed that in the financial regulations because we actually need project management. I think those committees where I'm the committee officer, you've heard me say that so often. And there's other changes that we've done that I've recommended we put into the financial regulations because then it's a more of a live process, because as officers we review the financial regulations far more often than we would review the financial risk assessment. But it's an evolving document. I was quite surprised at how many mistakes I found in last year's one, and last year I was even, you know, the minutes of the corresponding meeting were about that long because we had all the queries that we had in this. Then it is evolving. I think it does address the risks. Our risk environment hasn't changed very much from the last 2 or 3 years, so I have kept it. And in some of the cases, our understanding of risk has actually improved. So I'll use an example. When we had the SU, we thought that we were actually assuming responsibilities without necessarily accruing income or generating income from it. It's actually turned out to be the opposite way around. We're generating income, but we've actually haven't assumed very many responsibilities there. So that changes the risk profile of that particular item.
When I went through it, the first thing I saw was lots of green, which is always a good sign. And I'm always drawn to the red. There was a bit in here about e-commerce. Failure to maintain access to council online accounts. With the increased use of e-commerce, council accounts are being opened in personal names rather than using titles. When staff leave, access to accounts is restricted or denied. New account opening protocols have been developed to mitigate this risk. So that deals with any new accounts that are opened. Is there a process of going back through any that are already currently there and changing them as well?
We are doing that. We have to do that. Otherwise, we just lose access to our accounts.
Yeah.
So I had last year, for example, I think it was 8 months, I couldn't access our water accounts. So it took ages to be able to do that. So we're very strict in doing that. And what we've done as part of our protocol is that we, instead of, you know, I use the email address townclerk@Thetford Town Council rather than Alan York at Thetford Town Council. And all the other managers and staff are associated with a department rather than with their own personal name. But there's so many accounts and you keep discovering them, you know, often, but we are doing it because if we don't do it now, you know, we'll be at a stage where we can't do anything.
would it be good practice to have the same, say, 3 names on every account that you find? So as you know, you're sort of future proofing. So you know who's on which names are on it, rather than having, you know, Joe Blogs or whoever.
We try to do that. So, but unfortunately, in some cases, you can only have one administrator. But we do try to do that as a general rule, because that, you know, if something happens to me, I'm in hospital for, you know, 4 months, you know, someone needs to still, the business, the council still operates. So we have to address that issue, and we try. But I have one, for example, on Sage. I can't add other people to the account, unfortunately.
In some organisations where I've worked before, the head of the organisation has a list of everybody's passwords and stuff like that. Anyway, I mean, where do we stand on sort of GDPR and whatnot these days?
These days, for example, that's why we lost access to our Wave accounts, because I was using my predecessor's password.
Yeah.
They really do either put in protocols or they just suspend you and then you have to phone in.
Yeah.
And my predecessor was a female, so it's actually quite difficult for me to phone in. Because as much as I try to speak with this, I can't.
Way of seeing it, Roger, because where I am, if I'm away, people have access to my emails, and they're incredibly well protected because of all the data and all the stuff that I deal with.
I think so long as you have a system where you knowingly give access to other people, I think that bypasses GDPR in some sense.
Yeah.
You know, you can have private emails, but then also if it's a work email and people need access, you know.
Yeah.
At the magazine, we have about Thetford magazine and 3 of us have access to it. It's because it's business organisation. Okay, well, I'm glad that there's been sort of, you know, working our way backwards as well as forward. And the one that was risk value of 9, I think it was the only one. Inadequate maintenance of council-owned historical building. Council may have inadequate funds to finance the repairs required to bring into safe and usable condition. The scale of the essential restoration works at the Guildhall, £100,000, and St Peter's are reflect to the council's adequate level of reserve. St Peter's roof is still outstanding, and this was identified as urgent works in 2008. We move fast here. This is a public safety risk in respect of St Peter's. There is also a legal risk to not maintaining listed buildings. So the decision that we've taken in relation to the Guildhall addresses the first part, but the second part, St Peter's, is tied up with the Heritage Master Plan situation. So that will still appear on the risk assessment because we're actually no further forward. Although there has been quite a, you know, public safety risk is reduced in the sense of there's been quite a lot of work going on to deal with some of the immediate health and safety issues, hasn't there? It's, as far as I'm concerned, it's wind and watertight and relatively safe. It's just a shell, but
I think the fact that we've identified it as a risk, it doesn't mean that we're not doing anything or it's an indictment on us. It's just that we've understood the risk and we've actually valued it. And this is why dealing with St. Peter's in the medium, you know, shorter to medium term is actually quite fundamental. Otherwise, we are going to have some challenges at some stage.
I'm just wondering if that one should be a 9. Seeing as
4.9 is the other one.
no, high risk and high likelihood.
See, the E one.
4.9 then.
Oh, 4.9. Oh, it is a 9.
It is a 9. I'm just wondering if that should be a lower score or not.
I would be reluctant to I think we need to focus on it, and I think we should be reporting back on that. So if the Heritage Master Plan isn't a funding source, there should still be emphasis on management to actually go find or look at other things and try and assess what we can do to mitigate that risk.
Very. Yep. This is sort of a bit of a tangential point, probably. It says here, the Heritage Master Plan is still in progress. I was led to believe it finished last October. What is happening and what is going on?
It's the final reporting is still happening around the Heritage Master Plan. They've got extended by Historical Lottery Fund. They actually had a big system failure, and so they extended all their projects to enable us to give all our final reporting and etc. So,
do we have an expected finish date?
It's fairly short.
Sorry?
It is quite. I think it's in weeks rather than.
Okay, thank you.
I think I had end of March is something I've heard. I don't know if I've made that up, but I think that was something that was mentioned to me.
Okay.
And what does finished look like?
It's a report.
What happens?
I was allowed to take the test out, but
It's me that does it.
I don't know. I think that project we need to take control of the ownership of it again at some stage. And it's just.
Well, if I'm looking at a financial risk assessment that gives me the highest possible score of risk, and it's reliant on being resolved on the Heritage Master Plan, quite important that we know what's going on.
Yeah. Well, there's other phases to it. It's my understanding. So the Heritage Master. This is the first part of it. When there's a phase 2 of identifying the projects, because if we don't identify any projects in St. Peter's, if they could take to the next level, then we're in trouble, you know, we
Yeah.
can come back to this.
Yeah, it's at that stage, it's like that ridiculous meeting, that presentation was identifying the projects. And we couldn't do that because we were sitting in here looking at some absurd presentation as opposed to going and
But there were
do
no
this thing. There was nothing.
costings either.
No, no, it was just, no.
Sorry to.
No, please do.
My understanding is that that's sort of conceptual level. What gets developed is conceptual. It then gets developed further. There's another phase 2, and then there's a phase 3 to it. So we're finishing phase 1, is my understanding.
The concept was like the end of Station Road, a little road junction, which is absolutely nothing to what we want to do. Making that look pretty is not going to benefit the middle of Thetford, the Station Road junction. We've identified the main buildings, and we need to go out and talk to people. Sorry, Doug. Yeah.
No, just because I don't know if it has some, you know, I'm interested in this sort of stuff, but my understanding is the phase 1 comes and then we get a report, and then it's, right, what do we want to do now? And that's when it should come back to the decision point. Now, exactly whom, when we make that decision, I think still needs to be ironed out, and it's something that we probably need to decide which committee sort of leads it, etc. And I think there needs to be a clear structure on that. Phase 2 would then be identifying, okay, so we think St. Peter's Church and Encounters are the priorities, and we sort of move on that, and then we'd need to, I believe, spend a bit of money, but then I think we'd have to be match funded with Heritage Fund, lottery funding as well, to go, okay, right, now we can develop this plan in this direction a bit more specifically. That's when it theoretically gets drawn up with more costs. So to be honest, even if everything goes swimmingly with the Heritage Lottery Fund, etc., and the Heritage Master Plan, it's not a solution to St. Peter's Church in the next 4 years. It's going to be one of those things.
That's why I'm worried.
Yeah, which is why you're asking.
Unless the lot changes the way it's structured, the way funding is now is there is one project for the middle of Thetford. And that's the bit that I find quite strange. They want us to identify these 4 buildings or 5 buildings, whatever they are, and put one costing together for all those projects in one lump. And I find that incredible. It would be wonderful to say, focus on St. Peter's Church, on the Guildford, whatever, and then cost that up, get an idea for it, develop it, and then go back to the next one in a few years' time. At the moment, they want one project, detailed costing, detailed everything for the whole of the middle of Thetford.
My understanding was they want, but that's the ideal end goal, but they recognise there's constituting building blocks of that, and that it's not all happening at once. And then the next stage is for us to prioritise it and say which ones we want at that point.
So that's it.
Whether we do it that way or not is the other question, but that's at least the structure of what it's supposed to go about.
We need to sit down and actually develop it, do something.
Yeah.
Because we've been talking about this for a year already, well, no, 10 or 11 months already. And the funding bid was what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and we're no further forward.
Terry, then Carla, please.
I think the Heritage Master Plan is ours to do what we will with. It's that simple, isn't it? We don't have to abide by, that is just a report. It's not a diktat. So we make it what we want. And I've got some pretty firm ideas about what I want to do with it. Carla?
More in a way of a question. So last time Tricolor, whatever you want to call it, consultants were here presented, and we are at that crossroads that you mentioned where we could take things forward, but we need to come up with the projects to go inside the building to justify the use of the building, if I remember well. How far along since then have we come in reality? That's what I'm trying to get at, trying to understand exactly which point we are, to understand where we're trying to go with this, because there doesn't seem to be a direction at the moment. But I don't know exactly where. It's like trying to step in, you don't know exactly where you're stepping because you don't know what's been done and what the next step is. I heard about 3 steps, but when and how is what I still don't know.
No, I agree. Doctor, do you want to come back?
Yeah, I was going to say on that one, it is partly to do with this because we obviously were one of the key players. I think Heritage Lottery, the Heritage Master Plan was involved with different parties as well, so they have a stake in what they want as well. Whether we think that's a good thing or not is, yes, you're right, it's partly what we do with, but just there's other people we need to sort of work with, which is why it's all a bit murky and very strange about the way it's being presented to us, I find.
100%.
Yeah.
Doug, you mentioned stage 2 and stage 3. Is your understanding that the original funding envelope, the 250k, Does that include stage 2 and stage 3?
I don't think so, but I don't know. That's my understanding is it doesn't.
I don't think it does.
Yeah.
So we've adopted a draft project budget earlier for the year ahead. Do you see where I'm getting at? So the Heritage Master Plan is integral to our financial risk assessment. It's actually really important to our project plan because if the stage 2 isn't funded, as I don't think it
We
is,
can't just.
we've agreed a projects budget that doesn't allow any money to do stage 2 or stage 3. So anyway, I'm sure you're really pleased you mentioned Heritage Master Plan in the financial risk assessment. Because we're on the right tangent. I do think it's my fault. No, I do think it is related because it's the biggest score. There's 2 nines and it's the biggest score on here, and it does relate to our reserves and our project budget, and it's happening in isolation to those things. And I think we're right to be concerned. Anyway, sorry. I'll try and bring us back to order. The only other one was so we'll keep those scorings the same. There's not a problem with that. And the fire safety requirements not being met, and we've correctly identified them, and at least we're aware of the problem and we've obtained quotes and we're fairly on track.
Yeah.
Was there any other risks detailed within there that people wanted an update on or more information about? Doug?
It was one of the other star ones, and forgive me, is the to do with child welfare centre.
Yeah.
And I do remember having a discussion about it at a previous meeting. I think it says councils would be briefed, have briefing on it. I'm just wanting to check, is there any papers about that, just so we've got that for records?
Yeah.
I'll get the number. Sorry, I was flicking on to another.
No, that's fine. We were trying to quantify the risk on that particular
Yes.
one, weren't we? And in terms of the town council's liability.
Yeah.
And I think we did get some legal advice, didn't we? I can't remember where we were.
No. It took me quite a while to work out the methodology. So I was trying to work out how to do it. So it's just a matter of about doing it. I spent about three months every now and again thinking, well, could I do it this way? Could I do it that way? So I think I can actually do it by just doing values and projection of what would need to happen for the defaults to occur. So, but it's probably about a day's work or something. But
Which for some reason you've not got a free day in the moment. Right. Cool. That's fine. I just wanted to make sure I hadn't missed anything.
it's in the action points. So Kate falls through that.
Thanks. Everyone happy?
One question.
Yep.
Did we ever establish whether we are still insured against terrorist attack? Because that's not on there.
We are still insured because our insurance insurance premium got frozen, and if we change it, then we're going to pay a higher premium. So we just left everything as
Right. Terrorist attack isn't in the risk assessment, I don't think.
Before my time, I'm going to claim.
Didn't we establish a while ago the insurance stuff for renewal at some point?
We thought it had to be renewed in June last year. It runs through for second year and then it goes up for renewal.
Okay, so we might want to revisit that point when we review the schedule. And it says to recommend the adoption of the finance risk assessment to full council. Would somebody like to propose that we recommend that? Chris? And seconder? David? I hope you're paying attention tonight, David, because you need to present these minutes and recommendations to full council, because I'm not going to be there.
Terry?
But you're not there
I'm
either.
not either.
Oh, well, we need a key pick then.
Annie's here.
Forefront.
Annie's going to be here.
Would you like to present the money?
Yeah, okay,
And Alan will help you fill that.
thank you.
Sorry.
We have Charlie.
That was your starring moment next week.
Oh, it'd be like, I'll stay with the grandchildren and you can do.
I'm going to full council.
Oh, yeah, you're going to Brecon, so.
Right, moving on to 766, review of the financial regulations. Finance heavy tonight, Alan.
Unfortunately, this year in, that's it won't happen again for another 12 months.
But there are some quite useful proposals to amend financial regs. Are you happy to take us through them, and we'll sort of
Sure.
stop for comment on each one? Is that right?
On item number 1, the orders, we've spoken about that earlier on, and I think it's really just a matter of making it more robust. I'm driving it at the SMT level, and I'm going to make sure that it happens. We've got templates being developed and processes, and I'm fairly certain that we will get, we'll be able to get the financial regulations to support a process that's actually relevant to what we do from a budgetary control and spending perspective. Behind the line. The second one is an issue
Sorry,
around.
just on the ordering, I assume everybody's happy with that one.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm amazed that doesn't happen already.
We covered it earlier,
Yeah.
so brilliant. Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure.
The second point was really around authorising commercial leases, and I've become very much aware of this because I get an email sent to me from our property agents, and they'll say such and such is moving in. These are the heads of terms, and are you happy or not? And I just thought that because of the nature of places like the Shambles in particular, I think it would be very appropriate for there to be councillor oversight over that, or otherwise this committee has to, which is responsible for the commercial leases, has to set out some framework for us to operate, because I feel very naked, if I can use that term, in making those decisions. It is quite difficult. So we need a framework, or we can get some councillor oversight over it. So I would prefer to go to council oversight, because I think we have to be a little bit more flexible. If our property agent gets approached to do something and it's not in the framework, then we've got a whole lot of delays. Whereas if we had another mechanism, we could actually do that. So that's really what the proposal would be around that.
Everyone happy with that?
Yeah, we've seen the report, and or some of us have seen them. 3 of us, 4 of us have seen the report from the Thetford Trust, and we can't go on like that. We need a proper mechanism for doing this stuff.
I had a meeting with the clerk this morning, and she said she'd put that into the board papers. I said we do exactly the same thing.
Good.
Okay.
The third item that I've suggested changing is just to entrench the role of the grants working group. We set up that grants working group. It's just to make sure that when we have grant or we report on grants, that we actually run through that working group, and it's there, and it's effective, and it does what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. I think we should make it a requirement in financial regs that grants can't, it's not grants so much, it's terms and conditions for grants can't be signed without councillor approval. I'm not too worried about applying for grants because you're not bound to anything, but I do feel quite strongly that we've had situations where we've applied for grants and officers have signed to accept terms and conditions that councillors are completely unaware of. Ultimately, it's the councillors who are responsible as the council, and there should be some sort of, probably Finance and Personnel Committee should sign to say that we're happy to accept those terms and conditions. I mean, lots of charities that I've been involved in, the chief exec has to get board approval to sign up to those terms and conditions because they're still live, even if those members of staff move on. So, David?
Up to a point, yes, but depends on the size of the grant.
Yeah.
You know, if we turn around and say, yeah, above 5,000, good, whatever, but not every grant, I don't think. That could be just a thought. We don't need to know about the small grants of 50 quid, 100 quid, 500 quid.
I can't imagine we're applying for too many small grants.
Well, no, but there are going to be some small ones coming
I
out.
agree. I'm happy with the £5,000 figure.
Yeah.
That makes sense. If we don't meet the terms and conditions, pay the small one back. You happy with that?
Happy.
Okay, 4.
4 is, I also mentioned this, it's the bane of my life is that we don't have the project.
Absolutely.
And what I've done is I've actually put a monetary amount in, and a committee would have to say you don't appoint project managers rather than being the other way around. So if there's a project of more than £25,000, we have to appoint a project manager unless the committee approving the order or the tender actually decides otherwise.
Yeah.
that feels a pretty good insulation against what happened with the towers and scaffolding, doesn't it?
And it's happened us in other projects too.
Yeah.
Fire risks and things like that.
Yeah.
Brilliant, yeah.
Okay.
Item 5 is we have, when we put our tender documentation, we put in a whole lot of requirements that none of the officers are really in a position to assess. So sometimes we ask for environmental information, we ask for health and safety, and where, you know, an IT contract to have an environmental strategy, I'm not too sure is that relevant. I can understand that, you know, if you were doing waste management or something like that, that would be quite relevant. And I think it's really just a matter of saying, making sure that the tender document supports what's actually being inquired, rather than just saying, well, it's a checkbox, we need to have this, 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 and this. So we put it in regardless of what the nature of the tender is.
I think we've limited the number of contractors that have submitted tenders because we've asked for documents that a lot of firms don't have, and they're not even relevant. Why would we narrow the pool of people interested in doing work for us on the basis of documents that are not even relevant to the role?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
The only other thing I was going to ask, is there anything in any of the financial regs or any other documents that require contracts to be in place for successful tendering procedures?
No.
Do we have firms working for us that don't have contracts in place?
That has to stop, doesn't it?
Oh, dear.
What we've done,
Surely.
if I can, what we've done where possible is if I've been involved in that, for example, the IT contract that we renewed, they said it's an agreement, and I actually specified there that any conflict between this agreement and the tender document submitted, the tender document takes precedent, and they've agreed to those. So, but in most cases, we don't do any contracts whatsoever.
Another thing I'll be keen on would be penalty clauses, if appropriate.
Well, I think we should have a standard contract that should probably be included as maybe an appendices to financial regs, which includes key information. One of them is on obviously break clause, KPIs and financial penalties. And I think actually we should standardise our contracts, because one of the major issues we've had as a council is with contractors taking the mick, frankly.
Councils are seen as an easy touch, aren't they?
So I'm happy if you want to
But it always leaves us in
adopt
a
the
bad
rest and
position.
come back at a later date with a list of
Pick up the bill.
contractual requirements.
Is there,
And the fallout of that.
is there such a thing as a list of pre-approved suppliers from Breckland or anything like that?
Reckon operates approved
So can
suppliers, but we
access that? Or is that not viable?
I don't think that we have that much buying power, and we don't have enough of the same routine contracts. So
Yeah.
insurance, IT, that would be about it.
ours are project specific, whereas Breckland is more routine. That said, if it's over 25k, we do put it on the tender portal, don't we? And firms can bid for it.
So they've got to pre-qualify there anyway.
But I do think it should be a financial reg requirement that contracts are in place.
Maybe it's because I wasn't in finance before. They actually assumed there was already a breakout clause and a remedy sub clause embedded into those contracts, particularly when the average above 25k, which is the highest substantial amount in a contract. But if it's not there, I always do put it there because it's a safety net
And
for us and for
I've not
them. They
sensed-
know what to count on.
I've not sensed a lot of willingness from the council to address poor performance from contractors. And I think one of the reasons is because we don't have, it's like the conversation earlier about job descriptions. If you don't have a contract, what are the key terms in which we're engaging them? What do we hold them to?
If I understand well, I think it's the fear because there's not enough contractors out there for us to be picking and choosing about who we, So there's not many people putting forth and burning themselves forward to the tenders. So sometimes we have to do it by the ones that come forward and just pick the best out of it, whatever we give them. But even so, I think embedding those clauses in the contract doesn't take away from us going with those contracts. It just gives us a safety net in situations where the contractors will let down or they give up halfway, or if they're not fulfilling their commitments, we pay for a service we're not getting. There's got to be some sort of remedy embedded into the contract. And I think that's a legal point. It should be addressed.
Yeah, I'll give you a little, for instance, the steps that are done behind the Guildhall. Guy started work sort of before Christmas. After Christmas, decided to go on holiday. You can't be doing stuff like that. You can't be doing stuff like that.
Issues with the chairman's contracts on occasions. And that is a very good example of why those clauses need to be there. On the long term, they will pay off by being there.
Toilet cemetery opening,
Oh dear, the Christmas.
ruining my
saga.
Christmas day.
Oh, of course, the Christmas saga. Yeah, no.
Open when they feel like it.
But those things can be prevented if people is aware there are consequences of the contract not being kept up to.
Yeah. Sorry, Aaron, I'm creating some work for you. there.
No.
Sorry.
Don't expect that to be straight like this. So any
I'll put it on
movement-
the action plan for next year's review, if you don't mind, because there's so much to do this year.
Yeah. And I think some of these contracts will resolve themselves. Toilet, for example, we're recruiting our own person, they'll be resolved through other ways. But if we're going to take any new contracts on, we need to get it right now moving forward.
But it was those flaws and those missed points that led to us to finding an alternative, because otherwise the contract was working well. We would never address and never hire our own person. We would continue with the contract if that was working out, which it wasn't.
6. Regulation 20.1 needs to permit the charity to appoint its own clerk and separate the town clerk from the charity.
That regulation says that the town council appoints the town clerk as up to the trust. So it's just to separate that out, because we actually have changed that.
Okay,
Sorry, what charity?
stand before.
All right, okay.
Any?
And I assume that also would apply if the Carnegie is put to a charity.
I want to future-proof that by amending that to say any future charities that the council is the sole corporate trustee of, that would cover that. Otherwise, effectively, the 18 councillors are voting on the appointment of a clerk for the charity and you've got no idea who it is. Anyone got any other points about financial regs? Have you all read them in detail?
Intuitively.
I'm going to do a pop quiz next month.
Skimbridge, just for this particular session.
Well, they are a very good document. Anything else on financial regs? Are these a recommendation for council, aren't they?
This is the recommendation. I'll actually incorporate them into the financial regs and put it as a separate item on next week's full council.
For Annie to present for council.
Yes.
Ages, isn't it?
Can I have a proposal to accept the new financial regs with those amendments? Chris and seconder? Ron, all in agreement? Thank you. 767, correspondence, to note and consider any other correspondence.
Today I received a letter from the small audit authority. I have to bring that to your attention. It's just setting out instructions for this coming year's audit, nothing else.
Okay. 768, action points. Just going to pick up any that are. It was touched on earlier. First one, town website is still being developed and policies are to be added to the website once the update has been completed. I might park that. So you've got a website on your agenda tomorrow?
Yes, we have.
Okay, so yeah, probably best not to go into that then. The finance officer to investigate the rates for the council chamber. This has now been investigated. The town council has been paying a disproportionate share of the GW Stanleyfield charity business rates. Application is being made to have the business rate assessments revised. Has that progressed at all?
I had a chance to spend 2 hours on it today, and I spoke to Anglia Revenue Partnerships. They're happy to go back and revise all the rate assessments, and I've undertaken to give them the info, I've written a paper on it for them. So I'm emailing the information through tomorrow morning, and they will then start the process. I've got to link them up with our property agents because they've got the exact dates in some of the agreements. And hopefully we should get a significant refund from Anglia Revenue Partnership to the council. Because I made a mistake that I thought GW Studyford was actually had been relieved of the responsibility, but it's actually the council. Most of it will come back to us.
My significant might be different to your significant, but what's your significant?
We've been paying about £12,000 a year. I'd say half of that is ours. So £6,000 from 2019 to now, I would classify as.
That sounds like more participatory budgeting.
So that sounds significant to me, so I'm happy with that.
Back towards the reserves.
Yes, quite. Thank you for doing the work on that, Alan. I know that's been a job of work sat waiting to be done. The one that's probably relevant tonight, meter readings to be attained at the end of the financial year. So that's coming up and that's all poised to do that.
Do that.
Planning training in person is being approved. Derek mentioned the word Wetherspoons. Competitive quotes on credit card to be obtained to be timed with the expiry of the rental of the current credit card fees. When is the expiry period?
I think there's a few more months to go. The problem we have is we have very cheap rental agreements and slightly more expensive charges. Everyone else is offering very cheap charges but very expensive rental agreements. So I just have to do what's costing.
Okay.
After 923 will be just a month.
Yeah.
So Thursday night.
2 towers we can take off because that has been done. The Acton Town Clerk to contact Job Centre Plus in respect of vacancies being. Was that a useful process or?
I'll let you know next week.
That's a good point, actually. Okay. The Acton Town Clerk to ensure that the draft project's budget be taken to committees for more detailed discussions, and that has also been done. (769) community engagement. We adopted quite a transformational budget, and there hasn't been a single press release related to the budget. And I'm slightly annoyed when I see people on Facebook saying, why is my town council tax gone up by 9% and what am I getting for it? Which is a fair challenge. So I suspect I should probably have to help the comms officer with some of the detail, but I would like to see some press releases related to what people are paying for. And, you know, we have charged more, but we are delivering more as a result. So,
what I forgot to ask you for was your presentation to full council, but I think that was my mistake. I had that. I could have done something with it.
Certainly the decisions we took around apprenticeships and additional funding for welfare support, you know, are quite newsworthy, and those two things alone equate to the 9% increase, so let alone anything else.
I think it's worth, rather than putting it in percentage points, putting it in real numbers, because I think people look at 9%, oh, it's twice as much as Norfolk County, when it's only a tiny fraction of Norfolk County.
5% increase with Norfolk was about 60, 70 quid.
Yeah.
9% increase to us is about extra £12 a year.
Yeah, I think we need to.
That's the problem with the percentages.
It's also worth pointing out that the majority of people on benefits only pay 9%, in 9.1%.
Well, it's only
money.
It's only £12 for a band E.
Yeah.
So even if you're not on benefits, a band A to C is less than £12.
Yeah.
I think it's 14 actually from memory.
I wouldn't get into that argument because a lot of people pay nothing. Breckland insist on that 9%.
Oh yeah, but that is but that is the figure for.
Yeah, I agree, but
I think in cash terms, rather than 9%, yes, I think that's a brilliant idea. You know.
Yeah, good point.
It's clear for people to understand it.
Yeah.
In balance and perspective.
Yeah, 9% seems a lot. You know, £4 is nothing.
It's clear.
not 9% of nothing is nothing. 4% of a lot is a lot.
770 committee officers update, anything? Exclusion of press and public, to consider resolving that pursuant to the Public Bodies Admissions to Meetings Act 1960, the press and public be excluded for any remaining items of business on the grounds that publicity would be prejudicial to the public interest by reason of the confidential nature of the business to be discussed. The two remaining items relate to personnel issues. Are members happy to exclude press and public?
Yes.
Yes.
Which in this case means turning off the recording.
Okay.
There's no press and public to exclude. I just turn off the recording.